I'm Jay Moran.
I'm Bridget Jaipal Valenza.
I'm Thomas O'Neill White.
I'm Angelique Preston.
We need to get together and let our voices be heard.
This is What's Next, a dedicated hour to have important conversations about the issues facing the marginalized and underrepresented communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario.
We're going to have some real healing. We've got to have space to tell some uncomfortable truth.
What's Next continues our mission to discuss race,
Equity,
And the common concerns of Buffalo's East Side and beyond.
In the suburban area, everywhere, we must work and teach our children.
All right. I'm host Thomas O'Neill White, and on today's episode, we are discussing the state's proposal for the construction of the Kensington Expressway and Humboldt Parkway. With me today is Gina Davis, president of Just Breathe Block Club Association, and Humboldt Parkway resident Terrence Robinson. Thank you both for being with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Project 551252 on the New York State Department of Transportation's website is the state of New York's plan to reconnect Humboldt Parkway by tunneling roughly 4,000 feet of Route 33 between Dodge and Sydney Streets. There has certainly been mixed feelings, passionate feelings, and concerns from the community who would be most affected by this project, which is estimated to cost over $1 billion. And that is residents of Buffalo's East Side, and more precisely, folks that live in the neighborhoods around Humboldt Parkway. I've been talking a little too much. Gina, let's start with you. What's the sense you are getting from the East Side and Humboldt community about this project?
The sense that I've been getting these last couple of days since our meeting is no. The community doesn't want it.
And why specifically? What have you heard?
The concerns are the homes being destroyed, with the blasting, and the concern of health issues. And even if the city had, and they've had their meetings publicly in the state, not the city. And when the community came out Thursday night, that was some of their first time coming to one of these meetings. And I was surprised that I might have seen one or two that said, I don't even think two, that said they wanted the project. It was really, because one guy told me that the girl that came with her, she was all for the project until she got the information that night. So it really made an impact. And not that we want to bash down the project. Life is full of changes and we know that. But we, the community, just want to have what's going to be healthy for us and also economically improving for us and benefit all of us, mainly where we live.
Right. And Terry, you've lived in the Humboldt neighborhood for 6 decades. What was the area like when you were growing up, and how has it changed over the years?
Wow, that's a span, but there's been a dynamic change, and some of it is you'd have to live through it to understand what it was, but it saw a transition from a predominantly white second, third generation German, American, Jewish inflow to a very dynamic African American community in the second half of the 20th century. About 10 of those years in between was watching that transition, and then I'm seeing another transition happen again in these last 10 years of what was a overwhelmingly African American community into seeing an influx of new folks. So along with that, the institutions, the businesses, the things that make a community, all of that's changed along with that over time. So, and that's the more complex stuff, to tell you the truth. When you look at all of it, it's been an amazing, in short, in my 6+ decades there, an amazing place to live.
What makes the neighborhood so dynamic?
The people. the people. I mean, and it's always been. But what has interrupted that is this 33 Expressway. So it's completely destroyed, if you will, the flow of the communities, and it's destroyed the neighborhoods, because the organic flow that happens with having back in the day it was a bar at every corner, along with the corner supermarket, but that was part of it. And so, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, every 3 or 4 blocks to this barren thing that we have now, and disconnectivity is the basic story with that.
Do you feel left out in the consultation process of this project?
Well, the whole process has been engineered to support the outcome that they want. So,
the state, you mean?
New York State Department of Transportation has a infrastructure issue where the 33 at this time has passed its life, past its existence. So then we're going to have to rebuild it immediately anyway. They found a way to cover part of the cost with federal infrastructure and that type of money to reimburse maybe 80% of what the state but the state outlay was going to be what it had to be at this point, whatever, the $700-800 million for construction at this point, which is going to rise with the inflation and time and et cetera, so that you're looking at whatever $1.5-2 billion project by the time's all said and done. But they had to face that in terms of whether they were going to continue this infrastructure. And those are the real questions. Why and how and what are you doing with continuing and replacing this infrastructure versus any other alternative?
And you were interviewed by a local TV station recently, and you I'm going to quote you by saying you said the fix is in. What do you mean by that?
I mean that this is a plan in a box that comes from Albany to begin with, and it has absolutely no regard for the best interest of the people that either live in the area and, in a larger sense, the larger Buffalo community, because that's who we're part of. And all of this works together. So what they've done is they have a project that relies on mid-20th century auto-centric count the cars stuff without any regard for the people that live there, for the people that live around, for the city of Buffalo, and for any of the consequences. It's an environmental disaster. It's a social disaster. It's a poorly planned project, even from an engineering point of view.
Gina, do you feel left out in the consultation process of this project? You mentioned that you were sort of blaming yourself for not being, and for like the community not being as in tune to the project as they should be.
Yes, I don't feel left out, because ever since I reached out to the DOT, they were very nice. They explained everything to me, and I even learned more having a conversation than the 2 meetings I went to. And when I had asked the question about the digging, I watched the video, and I wanted to understand it, though, and I said, I cracked the joke about it going 10 feet, and I said, castles only go 6 feet deep. Why are you going 10? But that's when I said, wait a minute. I said, are you guys aware of Buffalo sitting on a fault line, Crendon fault line? And the woman said no, introduced me to a project manager, and that's when he said he would like to come to our community meetings and explain. He since retired, so they sent the guy that came Thursday night. However, I really was pleased with the conversation and to send a representative, because legally the DOT have given the community their guidelines of however they were going to do the project, having their public meetings and hearings or whatever they did, according to what they had to do, they've done.
Right.
So I was thankful that Thursday night, and I thank everyone that came out to express and understand the project. So when it comes to feeling left out, I don't, because Terry has given me a lot of information I didn't know. And I'm talking to more community leaders that has more experience with this type of project. My concern, I'm a 15-year cancer survivor. And I did not even think about doing no community work until I was going through cancer, and I seen work being done right across the street from my house. So I asked the neighbors if they knew what was going on. They didn't know. So, I walked over there, introduced myself. Long story short, the concern that we should have, we don't have. And it should not come out when it affects you personally.
Right.
Your community is you personally. So this is where I feel our community has to be more involved and engaged at what is going on. It's not just if it happened on the east side and I live on the north side, that's not my issue. If you live in the city of Buffalo, it's your issue. And this is where we are with this project. This is not, I don't live near MLK Park. So I don't live in the Madison district. I don't live in the Ellicott district. But it's still going to affect you. We got this traffic that's going to be over 80,000 commuters daily that's coming in and out of our city, which that is taking revenue. And we're already getting this emissions. But my concern was a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 months, when we had the smoke from Canada. So let's just think
over
about
the summer.
that. Let's just
Right.
think about that. That was over in Canada. Now we get this blasting done right here in the city. There's asbestos in the walls, I found out.
In the walls of
this tunnel, the 33.
Right.
So what do you think is going to happen?
Oh, don't
Now,
say
my
that.
main concern is health. I'm telling you, that's my concern. As well as everything else, because the decision that we make today or don't make today is going to affect our legacy because of
Right.
what we didn't do today. So that's why I have this passion to find out. Listen, let's get together. Let's talk about this. And I'm not saying shoot the project down, but let's talk about this project some more. Well, I know, but let's talk about this project some more because, yes, we need some changes. Yes, we need traffic control. So let's talk about it more. And to be presented to people in a community that does not know anything about a project, it can be frustrating because I have all the comments right here.
Oh, that's right. From
Thursday night. Yes.
From the Thursday Q&A.
And yes, because I read them. I read them again this morning, and I'm saying, wow, just to read them, and feel, even reading them, how people feel. And one just says, stop the project. So, and it's sad because we don't come out and engage more of what's going on in our community. That's my whole take. We have to get more involved.
Is there anything that stood out to you from reading those comments? Or was there a consensus in the cards? I know there was a resounding no. We're taking a look at the cards from the Q&A with the Department of Transportation from this past Thursday. What do it take to stop this project? That's pretty resounding. Yeah. That is pretty resounding.
Yeah, it was quite a few.
Well
that
said.
That. And but a lot of them also wanted to know, how can a community be more engaged? And we can be more engaged. And this is what our cry is. And I know Terry feels the same way. Come out and understand more what's going on. We have to be more engaged. Like, Terry's a wealth of knowledge. And they've done research that nobody would have done just sitting around saying, oh, what's a project going on?
Right, because I live there. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So, and I don't live far from
Right,
there.
exactly.
But I've never done this type of research. I'm saying, let me understand more about it. So what do? You network and you find out more. And this is what we're
Every
doing.
day. Every
Right.
day you hear something new.
Right.
Can you take us through your process, Terry, with this project?
Well, other than the lived experience of it, and I look back and I say, it's by design that the community is quote unquote disengaged, because that's one of the effects of the previous project, the 33. What it has done is just absolutely shattered the cohesiveness of a community that is joined together. And it's deliberate, and it's by design, and they exploit it just like they're exploiting it in this in this process. Like I say, it's been engineered. It's engineered to stay under the radar to a certain point, to when you finally release the documents and information, that it's overwhelming, and there's 350 pages in just the draft design report environmental assessment piece, the DDREA, with appendices that run into the thousands of pages, and they say, give me your feedback within 30 days, 45 days. That's absolutely engineered to move it through, to get, listen, if you have a project that spends over $1 billion in a predominantly residential neighborhood that is going to happen in the space of 4 to 5 years, and you come back with a determination that it is no short-term or long-term environmental impact, what possible project could have an environmental impact if one like this does not have? So I'm saying it's absurd almost on its face, but it's engineered to get the result they want to, which is vehicle miles traveled. 70,000 cars. Well, actually 35,000 cars, 2 trips each way.
Right.
Out of the 70,000, probably 65,000 of them are local traffic, people that shoot on, grider off, that run downtown, get on the 33. The only people not being connected, and they are being disconnected, are those 4 disadvantaged census tracts that are going to host this construction for 4 years. They're removing the Humboldt on and off ramps. We'll have to leave the census tract on a more narrow road with greater traffic to get in and out. We're completely disconnected from the thing that we're hosting being built from the 4 years of blasting and sanding and et cetera, et cetera. So it's completely the opposite, but it's doublespeak. It's designed they designed it to claim that it's an environmental benefit when it's exactly the opposite on every level.
And I was going to play devil's advocate here, and that seems like a heavy lift right now. But from the state's point of view, this project is reconnecting Humboldt Parkway, they say, and Hamlin Park neighborhood with MLK Park, 11 acres of green space. What's the problem?
The problem is you're connecting Sydney to Butler, and you're connecting Riley Avenue to Fillmore. You're going from nowhere to nothing. So what are you collecting? You're eliminating the major transportation arterial through the thing that you're hosting 5 years of inconvenience building. I live 40, 50 feet from my front door to the retaining wall there. The entire retaining wall has 250,000 square feet of asbestos-containing material throughout the project area. There's strategic absences in the report they gave us to review. For instance, the Dodge Street Bridge, bang, hit by a truck, they close it down, they've done repairs. But there's no mention of it in the report. Why could that be? Maybe it has to do with the removal and disposal of the asbestos-containing material, which would confirm exactly where it is and how it is. I don't know that, but I know that there's no report in the record regarding the repairs to the Dodge Street Bridge. All of those sort of things. All the selective use of statistics. The off-ramp, somehow they're claiming in one part of the report that there's going to be a reduction in air emissions because of some sort of reduction in vehicle miles traveled. Meanwhile, they say there's a 0.25% increase annually in the rate of vehicle miles traveled. In other words, you're saying we got to keep this arterial open. It's vital for the increasing traffic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, at one point. And then at the other one, they're claiming that there's going to be less vehicle miles traveled in terms of the air emissions. So, I mean, everything about it is off the wall.
Tell me more about this asbestos issue. Are they're supposed to be removing it during construction?
Well, if you look at the documents that they submitted, and there's certain ways that they're going to remove the retaining walls.
Right.
One of which is to drop it into trucks below. Another one is to saw certain panels. Another one is jackhammering, et cetera, et cetera. But the asbestos-containing materials report, done by Watts Engineering, and they're just basing it on the historic records of the way the thing was constructed. The backs of the retaining walls were covered with this product, bituminous 61. It's essentially like a coal tar thing to waterproof it. They waterproof the back of the retaining walls. That material has asbestos-containing material. Now, as to the condition of the retaining walls, particularly the ones that are facing to the dirt and earth behind it, and based on what we see from the exterior of those walls with the exposed rebar cracking, et cetera, on the other side of it, pretty much indicates that that the rear of the walls have deteriorated in the 40 years' life. And so the stuff is, even though they say they haven't been able, because it's inaccessible and it's below the roadway, the same technique to waterproof it, until they tear it up, they can't tell you for sure, quote unquote, what's there, but that's what was used to seal it and make it waterproof. So the question as to whether it's quote unquote friable or not at this point is to some extent academic. They'll be making it friable when they demolish those walls, and they demolish the walls because this is not this is a construction project. This is an entirely new structure, a tunnel almost a mile long. They're going to remove whatever happens with this project. You remove whatever is there now, and you're replacing it with a new structure. Unless, of course, if you restored it and just filled it in and didn't have to deal with the bulk of the removal and disposal of the hazardous material. I mean, that's an option, but which I think is the smart one at this point, but you'd have to study that more. But the whole structure that exists now is permeated with asbestos-containing material. How that could not be a potential for exposure and environmental of a short or long term. I mean, when you look at what they're telling you, they're going to be doing construction in a 1 mile distance for 4 years. It may be a temporary inconvenience to someone else, but for the next 4 years of my life, 200 feet at a time, they're going to do the east wall, they're going to come back and do the west wall, and they're going to do the construction in between.
So how do you hammer this point home to the state?
Well, you know what? I think what you do is, that's the one solution at the present time is to have an environmental impact statement with an honest assessment of the potential impacts. If you do that, that's putting people back into the mix. But they have stated that they intend to, and this report says they're moving forward with what in the feds is called the finding of no significant impact in the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the SEQR. It's actually a negative declaration. The DOT, Department of Transportation, has their own terminology. They call it a determination of a DONSI, of no significant impact. But it's a negative declaration, NEGDEC. So to even pretend that you could have not a short-term or long-term impact environmentally from a project of this nature, this magnitude, is absurd on the face. So if you go to an environmental impact study that has honest data, I mean, think about it. This is 50 years of 70,000 cars plus
a day
going through there. Why are there no epidemiological studies? Why are there no studies of increased asthma or cancer rates as a result of this transportation facility through this neighborhood? If you don't have that kind of data to hand, after 40 or 50 years, it shows a callous disregard for the people that live there. And not only that, but I mean, knowledge for the rest of the community that when you have this much transit through a such and such neighborhood, you may expect an increase in that data should be there.
Right. And to your point, the area that we are speaking of has a number of daycares, a number of places of worship, and 2 community centers.
Again, when you look at the people, this is a historic. Now I'm a preservation guy, okay, and
I can tell.
The historic aspects of it are that, and when you speak to their studies, and they're telling you that the inconvenience and the way that it will be regulated and monitored, et cetera, churches have community services at different times than businesses. You see, so when we're talking business hours, it depends what business you're in. But I mean, there's these 5 or 6, and some of them absolutely historic congregations. When you talk about the Humboldt Parkway Baptist Church, it is the congregation that moved from the Michigan Street Baptist Church to Humboldt Parkway Baptist Church in 1962. And because of their old linkages with going back to pre-Civil War days, including the abolitionist movement, et cetera, Frederick Douglass and all of the people related to William Wells Brown and et cetera, related to those struggles and coming forward to Buffalo's own Mary Talbot, to Jesse Nash, et cetera. That's when you talk about a black community church, when you talk about a black congregation, it's the congregation that moves things. It's the that's where it's the congregation that has those networks locally, statewide, et cetera, They don't exist in a vacuum or one thing. So you've got the congregation that moved there. So you had people like Adam Clayton Powell Jr., Martin Luther King, et cetera, that visited these various congregations after the transition even to Humboldt Parkway, and that's our history. So all of those things are different layers that there's no regard for at all.
Yeah, and I'm reading this letter from Preservation Buffalo Niagara to the environmental specialists from the New York State Department of Transportation, basically saying we cannot concur with your findings that this project will have a determination of no effect.
It has an effect not only because of what it does, but because of what it prevents, because of what it doesn't do. History, there's one word for history: context. And that context of why all of even when they point out the acquiescence of the state Office of Parks and Historic Preservation, SHPO, and that sort of thing. And even they, when they agree with them, say that there will be a Humboldt Parkway District East and a Humboldt Parkway District West. And the thing that divides them is still this structure, this transportation. It doesn't unify anything. It reinforces the separation and it prevents me from uncovering the Scajaquada Creek, which is a historic. I mean, that's the last path of the Underground Railroad. The Seneca, even the European fur trappers, Kanjakati, the last of the tribe that the Seneca displaced, and whose Scajaquada Creek is actually named after. People didn't drive down Expressway. The Scajaquada was the route. That was how you got, and it parallels the Ferry Street. So when you have W.E.B. Du Bois crossing at what is now Freedom Park, but Broderick Park, because that's the logical place. When he does that in 1905, at the foot of the Scajaquada. And when in 1901, W.E.B. Du Bois has an exhibit, and they just honored Barbara Nevergold Seals. And the TR site just honored those two wonderful folks for the Uncrowned Kings that they did. But they were citing that W.E.B. Du Bois had an exhibit at the Pan Am in 1901.
Mm-hmm.
So the Pan Am exhibit in 1901, if you were following the Scajaquada and the historic Scajaquada Expressway, which they want to convert again to a parkway, if you followed that route and the historic Humboldt Parkway, again, connects to W.E.B. Du Bois at the, History Museum, and he comes back in 1901 and does the essentially the founding of the NAACP starts there. And the founding of the NAACP involved these couple of magnificent but Jewish women on the first board, and that's the history of that linkage during that time between the struggles of the Jewish people and the African American people. And that's why that Humboldt Parkway district held all of that stuff. And so when you disrespect, you're not just disrespecting the history of the black people. You're not just disrespecting the history of the Jewish people. George Dito has a house on Humboldt Parkway that looks to St. Francis de Sales Church. St. Francis de Sales Church was one of the churches he designed, but he also designed Buffalo City Hall. I mean, you devil's advocate, but if the shoe fits.
So we talked about the project continuing to separate. Other folks that I've spoken with say this project is also, in effect, continuing to gentrify Buffalo's black community. Is that, you see it that way, Terry, Gina?
I don't see it that way.
You know what? I think that is, if you're going to, and just like Gina says, and I think she's a perfect candidate for, anyway. But, I mean, here's somebody that has lived in and that knows the community the way that I do. And so gentrification, we're talking about a robust community benefits agreement. And if you have a robust community benefits agreement, then the people that have been exploited for the last 40 or 50 years should benefit from the project.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
In other words, they're the stakeholders.
Yes.
So what they should do, if there is an increase in property values and aesthetics around them, God bless all of us, because we've borne the opposite for the 40 years. So if you had something as simple as whatever you want to call it, a STAR program, et cetera, that capped tax rates, if you've lived in a home or owned a home for 20 or 30 years, your tax rate is capped for the next 20, 30 years, or however you do it, then the benefit in the increase in property values, etc., would accrue to the people that made it happen, actually. It would increase in a very tangible way the wealth within the community, which should be held within and I'm not saying that you exclude anybody. I mean, if you are a bona fide, interested stakeholder willing to invest in that community, then this thing should be structured in such a way to incentivize the folks you want there, the folks that are going to contribute to it, and the folks that have contributed. No, you don't just raise the flag and say, take what you want the way you exploit. That's what they're doing right now, putting $600-800 million in the pocket of some out-of-state or out-of-city contractor to build some monstrosity that continues a 50-year-old back-asswards way of doing things, And
just to be clear, there is no community benefits agreement for this project.
You know what? To be clear, this is they just put up a frequently asked questions tab on this site. I think it might have been as a tacit response to my brochure, but I'm not going to get into that right now. And they claim, now it's one of two ways. Either they're claiming that those funds can only be spent on the physical infrastructure of constructing this piece, in which case they're saying that there are no funds allocated to any of the people portion of it, which is okay. That would be one way of looking at it. But if it's the type of project that is designed to be assisted by the Infrastructure Act and the Climate Resiliency Act and all of the other things that they're supposedly give smart growth, et cetera, the effect on the environment is the people, right? So, I mean, the effect on the environment, the effect on the people is a part of it, and there's got to be funds, robust. If I can cover the bloody project, do a parkway all the way from the Elm Street to the AKG easily for under the 100 mil, based on the practical knowledge of Rochester and their inner loop and all of those things. So we can cover it for a tenth of the price that they're allocating. We can rededicate that other money to things that we're supposedly doing, like retreeing, et cetera, et cetera. There's an $8 million grant for the city to do all of those things that are supposedly we're redoing, creating permeable areas for combined sewer overflow. When you look at all of the regional outlooks and the things that they say you should do going forward, Citizens for Regional Transit have a light rail transit proposal going from the airport to the Exchange Street station that should be a component of it. Waterkeeper wants to restore the watershed in a very big way. There's $10 million going to that in the northern end, $6 million in the southern end. It stops again at these same old disadvantaged census tracts where, bang, it stops right at the door, picks up again at the other side of it, at the door going out on the That's not by happenstance. It's been, like I say, I'm a historian. So, when I get into the redlining, when I get into the whole context of this thing, it reinforces that it's the exploitation, the abuse, the disregard of a less than influential, population. You're right. The community hasn't come together. The community hasn't stood up and said, because it's designed, that whole structure has been designed to disconnect this community for the last 50 years, and that design has worked.
Mm-hmm. What will it take to bring this community together? Gina, you are community motivated.
Yes, I'm Black Club president.
Yes, Black Club president. Does it take a coming together of Black Club presidents to keep the community involved, educated about this project?
Yes. I'm huge on Black Clubs, and I feel that if we all have different Black Clubs right here, and if you have an issue, me and Terry should be pulling together to help you. Mm-hmm. That is what's not going on. Mm-hmm. And our Black Clubs have to come together closer and work together, because I feel that once our city see how the Black Clubs are coming together and helping one another in one area, although we don't live there, right. When they see, I always say it's power in numbers. So whenever you see a group of people helping one issue over here in South Buffalo, then you see the same group of people over here helping somebody on the west side. Now they say, whoa, wait a minute. They're coming together. So now they got to sit up and listen to us. So we, once again, community have to come together and work together. And it starts with Black Clubs, because we are the glue to the city with the constituents and the elected officials. Right. So when we come together, now Miss Smith sitting over there, I don't want to be bothered, I did that. And it's now when they see, wait a minute, look at these three, I've been over there and I seen them over there. Now it gets catchy. So that's what needs to happen. Once the community see, because a lot of them, they have this mentality. It's always been like that. Mm-hmm. Right, and they're set in their ways.
Same old
thing. They're not going to do anything. Right. They already did it anyway. And no, this is a new day. Yeah. We got to show them it's a new way. And until we do that, they're not going to listen. They're not going to, it's like, oh, well, yeah, those three again. They're done by themselves. But now when you got 15 others coming to help these three, now they say, wait a minute.
Well, we're fortunate. I mean, we're unfortunately, Candace Moppins wasn't able to join us today, but she's a real involved, engaged, public servant type community piece that has been a tremendous asset. Again, but that's sort of linking to exactly what Gina just said, that Delavan Grider community, the Hamlin Park community, the Trinidad Block Club community. Folks are starting to get real information, not misinformation, and perspective on what these guys are proposing and the way they're proposing it and what they're proposing and what it. They keep telling you that the primary thing is, there's two primary things: connecting the community and maintaining vehicle miles traveled, etc. Meanwhile, they're disconnecting the community. They're creating. They're going to create a tremendous bottleneck of all of the traffic that feeds between Fillmore and Jefferson and Best and Delavan, coming off and getting on at this Best Street roundabout and traveling a single lane to feed every side street that comes off of it within that corridor. I mean, that's going to be the reality for me, is that I'll be lucky to get out of the driveway at 8:30 in the morning, because there's got to be a
so
continuous
much,
stream going
yeah.
down to get onto the expressway through the only route that will be open.
Right.
They are disconnecting us from the new project they're doing, because a tunnel doesn't have those on and off ramps.
No, they don't.
Right.
It's a straight
That,
shot.
yeah, that was one of the concerns that was
that is a
at
huge
the meeting.
concern.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah, I mean, and you got to think of those that live right there on Humboldt. He's right. He will not get out his driveway no time soon. In the morning.
Crazy.
Yeah, but you know, one thing I do have to say when you mention roundabouts, I am 1,000% for roundabouts, and I'm gonna tell you why. The first one I seen was on Kensington and Harlem.
Right.
And when they showed it on the news, I'm sitting up there, I'm watching the ladies driving. I'm going, oh my God, they look just so lost. Now, years ago, the city had introduced a project called CEPTED, which is Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. And so when I took that training, it really opened my eyes. Like now, if I go out of town and I see a dark area, I go, that's an ambush spot. You know, so even lighting, and the main thing that was like forced in our head was maintenance. That's a huge thing too.
Yeah.
Who's going to
we'll get back to
maintain?
that.
Who's going to maintain? So that's a whole nother one.
Right.
But so
We'll
once
circle back to
again-
that.
So once again, when we talk about the roundabouts, they are perfect calming measures. And I didn't understand that until I kept watching, and I had to go that way because I go to the doctor, the grocery. So I had to, learn that. But when I took that training, Buffalo has a horrible, horrible record of speeding. The speed bumps that we have in this city, I'm going to speak for my street, it's a joke. Now, we had some years before the ones we have now, and they literally slowed down the traffic. They were high enough that once you hit that first one, you're going to be screaming, hollering, cussing to yourself in the car, and we watch and laugh. But that next one, when you get to it, you're slowing down.
Yes.
So it did make a difference with the speeding. These here, we watch them. Boom, boom. Keep going. Boom, boom. So it doesn't matter. So when you have roundabouts, in one area that we definitely is pushing to get one, it's a traffic accident corner. And when you have a roundabout, it will help traffic not just come dashing out.
Is that at Best and...
Well, that's the one that the DOT wants to put.
Yes.
But the one that's an accident corner is Walden, Genesee, and
Wow.
that corner is horrific.
Again, all of the high accident, you call it the
Corner.
accident corner.
Yeah.
I'm used to Utica and Ferry
Humboldt-
Street.
Well, yes.
And Humboldt.
Oh,
and they're 4 times the accident
Every
rate.
time.
Why is it that the only accidents that and they're talking about there'll be an increase or whatever, are along that structure, one way or another? And it's, if you count the fatalities on the 33, and I mean, you have to count it all the way from Elm Oak to, let's just go to where the 198 meets.
Okay.
And the 198 connection, I'll give, it's another thing past, let's say, Fillmore Grider. But the number of fatalities along that, which count all of the wrong way people, include the poor lady that died in the blizzard, one or two of them, one going to the Broadway market and the other a care worker, that's never counted. The inaccessibility, the wrong way, the motorcyclist, besides being a constant noise thing, the thing that happens with that and those guys that have passed, including people that I know. It's all of these things are factors that are not being fairly weighed in this. And that's, if you give it an honest look, there is no real advantage. Let's just put it this way. I don't have to speculate. I look at Chapin, Bidwell, Elmwood, and Delaware. Now, when Fillmore Avenue and Jefferson Avenue can equate to the amount of vehicles traveled on Elmwood and Delaware on any given day, that's another 10 years away. Why is there no outcry about traffic, about accidents on Chapin, Bidwell, et cetera, and what it does to that community? And, I mean, this is the system. The system's designed, and it was designed to work, and it worked on the west side, which is why Elmwood Village was one of the best neighborhoods in the country, rated for the last 20 or 30 years. It worked a treat to develop, small businesses, interchange flow, et cetera, et cetera. That's the same system, except you ripped out the parkway on this side. Restore that grid, restore that parkway. You've got the same design. Right. You don't have to speculate. It's there. I see it every day. If I'm coming off at Gate Circle and it looks like I'm jammed at Delavan, Delaware, I just shoot down Chapin Parkway and boom. So there's
ways that they
right. There's 100 different options. So I'm just saying, all of that stuff is there. All you have to do is do it the right way.
Right. Now it's time for me to sheepishly admit that I live in the Elmwood Village, over by Bidwell.
So
yeah, I know.
It's a lived experience.
Exactly.
And it's one of the. Listen, I used to work at the when it was the Lexington Co-op. We go back. I mean, that's went to school over that's the city of Buffalo. Even though it might have been Irish, Polish, German, Black, et cetera, there was flow between the different neighborhoods, the community. Yes. My granddad used to walk to the Broadway market from Florida Street. Didn't want to ride. That was his, So the opportunity to walk, to play football, to play tag, to et cetera, while we're doing. You're not going to have mature trees the first 10, 15 years. So that's your opportunity to say, hey, here's a community garden. Here's a pollinator patch. Here's and to teach the kids teach the kids. I go out. I could go out there, do my little Tai Chi. I can walk for or just But while it's developed, that's planning. To plan, they don't even know who's going to be maintaining it.
That's the point that I was just about to get to.
Well,
just to segue there's no plan for maintenance of the tree-lined parkway tunnel on top of the tunnel.
We can see the care and stewardship and level of maintenance from the New York State Department of Transportation by looking at what is there now.
I will say that the maintenance can come from the community.
So that should be
most definitely
from the state on down.
And exactly. And that can be a teaching experience for the kids
the
and et cetera.
And the adults as well.
Right.
Yes.
Connect them from the start.
Yes.
Exactly.
Would either of you like to see an itemized cost sheet to see where and what this money, this $1.5 billion, as is currently estimated, is being spent on? You've got a huge smile.
You know what? The sheet right now, that only tells whatever part of the story that it tells. Yeah. But there's if they've allocated, and I think it's roughly $770 million or something for the construction cost. and then they've allocated a certain amount for the inflation rate.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's, the soft cost, et cetera, et cetera. There's different things in that. And they detail it. That's where you find some interesting things in the report. $14 million for right-of-way. Now, right-of-way and administration, it's called. So that's a lot of money. We're not Midtown Manhattan in terms of property value right now. So, I mean, to spend $14 million on a project that is approximately 1 mile long over 4 years, it's on the books there.
It's got you thinking.
It's on but how's that spent? That's not in there. And who gets that money? What's the piece? How's that dispersed? And who gets a piece of what, et cetera, et cetera? I've been around this thing for a while, and I'll just put it that way. If they've already allocated the 1.2 million in the larger sense, in the vernacular of the turf, it's already whacked up. People know what their cut is and where they're going to get in and fit in and who's going to eat where, and the promise of off-street parking and the promise of infill that's associated with the other the corridor stuff, and it's a mixed bag. There's a lot of promises. They always get a couple people to eat the crumbs and carry the flag, but it doesn't tell you the real story of who gets what for what and how it's going down.
So let me ask you, Terry, with that being said, as a stakeholder that they have from the community, would the stakeholders be getting more of that information?
No.
The truth. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Because the reason why I ask is because, once again, how would we, the community, hopefully want to trust that we're getting their word as to including the community with the CBO? How would we know? Yeah,
right.
They can say,
you.
Okay, well,
a disclosure.
Okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna let you do this piece, and we're gonna set aside $15 million. Okay, so how would you get confirmation that that's going to happen?
I don't. You know what? I've got a couple basic rules of life. One of them is follow the money. If you follow the money, you learn a lot.
Right.
Who's got what? But all of that is supposedly that depends on the contract, the bid, yada yada, all of those sort of things. Not to say how they write a bid as to the RFP, the request for a proposal. You write the RFP, and wow, there's only 2 contractors that can meet those specifications.
Right.
All of that kind of stuff. And then once it's, how it's dispersed, to who it's dispersed, and who has an interest in it or an expectation at this point.
What's next in this process for the community? What else can residents do moving forward to make certain their voice continues to be heard?
Well, what Gina Davis plans to do is engage more with the DOT. I'm not going to just sit back and wait and hear in the news or what they're doing. I'm going to be calling. I'm going to be contacting them. I'm going to stay more engaged than I have ever been in this project. So that is what Gina Davis is going to do.
You're taking the rest of the block clubs with you.
You know it. Yes, I am.
Well,
because we have to. This is a must.
And to me, it's a much bigger issue than just my community. It's an environmental issue. It's a huge environmental issue. I'm also on the board of the Pollinator Conservation Association. So, and the only endangered species in the area is the monarch butterfly. So, to me, the potential to have favorable habitat along that corridor for both the butterfly and the we're also a major migratory bird corridor. In that time that I'm waiting for those trees to mature, those sort of things. So to engage the community at large, those that would love every single plan for the city of Buffalo and the region talks about the restoration and the development of the Olmsted Parkway system.
The one question we haven't got to is, what would you like to see done with this section of the 33?
I would like to see it closed off. And the community
Like filled in?
Yes, fill it in. Just fill it in. And when I asked one of the presenters of the project, the very first time I went, and this is when I first heard about the 70,000 commuters coming in and out of the city, and I said, so we, the city constituents, are going to be inconvenienced for over 70,000 coming in and out of our city to make sure they get back and forth to work. I said, absolutely not. Let's flip the tables and say, we had a job out in the suburbs, and they're going to tear up their city
so we can
get back and forth.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. It's not going to go down.
Right.
So once again, looking at it from my point of view, I would love to see it closed in and join the communities back together and have the beautiful habitat. Just have more engagement of our community, and DOT can do this project, and we all come together and work together. Because I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to take this to the word, our life is not our own, okay? And if we don't help one another, you'll pay for that on Judgment Day. And I'm just going to keep it right there, because it's so much that I hear about just selfness. Mm-hmm. And it's money in it, and they're getting paid. Somebody's getting paid. You got to stop it, because this is why our world is the way it is today. And I'm talking from this pandemic all the way up to this project.
Terry, what would you like to see done with the 33?
I'll keep it simple, and I say keep it simple. Do the right thing.
I know this $1.5 billion is coming from federal and state transportation departments. Could that $1.5 billion be put to better use in the city, and how?
It's just a part of it. I mean, this is the project. So a project involves people. You know, I mean, in other words, with the same amount of money, within the same time frame, you could have 250, 300 million going into various community benefit stuff, which might be restoration and repair of historic property from a whole cadre of people that are taught to be artisans, carpenters, masons, etc., etc. So employing them for the next 20 years on the basis of just community benefits and infrastructure, and making it more, energy independent. And you might have 200 million going to infill. And that infill property would be designed to be compatible with whatever's there, and encourage, single family, double family homes that fit into that community in the building of them. That's a project that puts money in and restores the vitality of it.
Gina?
No, I was told that if we did not go with this project, the $1.5 billion goes back and we will not get it.
That's only if you don't. You know what? As I say, they engineered the project to come up with, to only justify the alternative that they wanted. Okay. If you put the right alternatives on the table, come up with the right one, do it the right way, and spend the money while it's there.
All right. And that's it for this episode of What's Next. I want to thank my guests, Gina Davis, the president of Just Breathe Block Club Association, and preservationist, historian, pollinator.
I'm glad you're using those words, because people use others.
Terry Robinson. I want to thank you both for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Since the recording of this episode, the New York State Department of Transportation has extended the public comment period for environmental assessment by 2 weeks, making Friday, November 10th, the end date for public comment. This is WBFO and WBFO HD1 Buffalo, WOLN Olean, and WUBJ Jamestown, your NPR station. That about does it for this episode of What's Next. This has been Thomas O'Neill White. Thank you very much for listening.